Well, hello, everybody. Happy Friday. It is Friday, May 27th, 2022. My name is Stephen Meade, and I'm with Domicile Real Estate, where we are on a mission to help California's renters become homeowners. This is our Southern California first-time buyer market update, and the word of the day is equilibrium, and I want to talk a little bit about the market and what we're seeing. And, a lot of people have told me that doing updates weekly is too frequently, and this is one of those weeks where I get to tell those people they are wrong. It is not too frequent, and our market moves very, very quickly. And, the last few weeks, we've definitely felt a little bit of a shift, right? And now I feel like we're seeing something else in the market that's very interesting. So, one of the things when you talk about real estate markets is you'll start to hear economists use interesting terms, right? Like they'll talk about market momentum, they'll talk about market speed, and they'll start to apply these almost like physical traits to the market. And it's really kind of fascinating. And the reality is that we do use a lot of physical modeling to understand how markets move. And, just like if you're trying to balance a rock or you're trying to do something, the market is trying to find a stable place, right? It's not trying to sit on a point balancing precariously. It's trying to find that spot where there aren't a lot of forces, and it's kind of always moving in that direction to some degree. And I think the last few weeks have felt very chaotic and very hectic. And if you're a buyer out there, you've probably been left wondering, thinking confused, what's going to happen? What is my best move? Am I making a mistake? Am I moving too fast? Am I not moving fast enough? Right. And I think it's been very difficult to get kind of like a sense of up and really kind of get your bearings. And what I want to talk about is we're kind of seeing some results in our statistics that say something is happening that I think is good news for buyers. And honestly, probably for some sellers too. I think we are seeking a little bit of a market equilibrium. So let's start off here and talk about our closed prices. Again, this is for our first quartile, or the entry level at the end of the market. The blue line are entry level single family homes. These are 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes. And then the red line is our entry level condo, 2-bed, 2-bath homes. There is a good amount of week to week variation here. This is just kind of some noise in our data stream. But if you look, remember this data is 4 to 6 weeks old. We see some numbers came back up a little bit. I do think that, what we're going to see is this kind of price stabilization. And as the weeks come by, we're going to see that in our closed prices. So if we look at our total monthly payment, again, we're seeing that it almost looks like what's happening here is that the market has hit a little bit of a ceiling on payment, right? And this isn't largely unexpected to some degree, right? People will keep paying only so much, and then you'll kind of hit this sort of affordability limit or affordability ceiling. And I think that's what we're doing around that $5,400, $5,500 a month level for our entry level single family home, and kind of around that $4,500 a month level for our entry level condos. And again, everyone, just as a reminder, this is specific to Southern California. I always say this, you might have very similar results in other markets, but we run our statistics based on Los Angeles and Orange counties. And again, just as a reminder, where do we get this number? Where do we get this $5,500? Well, it is the total monthly payment, assuming a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, 5% down, including mortgage insurance, taxes, any HOA fee, and insurance. If you look at our household income required, that again is hovering kind of in this $140,000 level for our entry level single family, and right around this $110,000 type level for our entry level condo. Again, this is the minimum household income you need to qualify, assuming there are no other debts. Let's look at our absorption rate here. And this really is kind of like our canary in the coal mine on what's happening in the market, at least if we're looking for the whole market. And, we've really seen these numbers back off a bit, and they were heading down, but now they've started to level off and or come back up, and we're in the mid 70s. So what does the mid 70% mean as an absorption rate? Well, basically that means it is still a seller's market, but it's not necessarily a super strong seller's market. So it is a moderately strong seller's market. And I'm going to go off screen share here because there's something I want to say, and I want to say it like 3 times so that we'll get some angry comments. We are in a stage where our market is not homogeneous. It is not the same. And what that means is the most desirable homes will have a lot more activity and be a lot more competitive than the least desirable and or overpriced homes. So, whereas several months ago, every home was very competitive, the difference now is that there is just a much broader range of competitive levels. So, obviously we hope you call us to be your trusted advisor in a real estate transaction and let us represent you. But even if you don't, ask your real estate professional what kind of market you're playing in and about specific homes you're interested in, because one might be in that hyper competitive level and another might be in the, hey, I think we can actually offer a bit under list price and be able to get a deal and get into escrow. So it really varies depending on the property right now. So definitely just kind of understand that this metric here is meant to be a whole market average, but right now there's a pretty big spread between the most desirable market segments in homes and the least desirable. So if we're looking at our inventory, this is the reason why I think we're finding a bit of a market equilibrium. So let's take our entry-level single-family home here in the red line first. So if you look back a year ago, you see we were at around 1,400 units. Today, we are at 1,800 units. That's a pretty big increase from where we were a year ago, but it's not really that big of an increase from our peak, which was in the middle of August of last year, right around 1,800 units as well. But what's even more important here is look at the shape of this graph, right? Like pretty smooth, and then pretty much through the month of April, really aggressive increases in inventory level, and then it just suddenly leveled off over the last week. That's not by accident, right? And I think what we're seeing happen here is we're seeing the market finding an equilibrium. It's finding a spot where it sort of makes sense and it's kind of finding a place to settle. So I think if you're the kind of buyer who's been feeling like the ground is very shaky and uncertain, these are some signs that we're seeing certainty. Now, normally I might think that that's just a little bit of noise in our signal that could just be a temporary trough. We've seen that before. But look at the fact that we're actually seeing that occur also with our entry-level condo. Now, again, our entry-level condos are still well below last year's inventory point. So the market has definitely moved more towards condos than it was at last year. Our inventory levels below 1,000 units. That is pretty much where we were at the beginning of the year. At any point last year, we were considerably higher. Now, if we look at our 14-day still active percentage, this looks at everything that came on the market in the last 14 days. Remember, bigger numbers are less competitive. We do see some leveling off here, and we see numbers, especially for condos, that are about the same as they were last summer, and our single-family home was a little bit higher. I do think we're going to see this stabilize to some degree as well. I think one of the things that we're seeing happen in our market right now, and I'll go off share here to explain this, is we're still seeing some sellers kind of go on the market with what I'm going to call thoughts and prayers pricing, right? And that is pricing where, they'd really like to get that amount of money, but it's not necessarily market-based pricing. So what they might have done is cherry pick the comps, right? They priced their home the same as that one that was fully remodeled that sold 2 months ago. Well, it's not 2 months ago and their home isn't fully remodeled. So, those homes are going to sit on the market. And I think we're starting to see that get into these stats. And that's part of what's contributing to this disparity, right? Again, where the most desirable competitive homes are way more competitive than those lower end, less desirable homes. And when I say lower end, I mean in terms of desirability, not necessarily in terms of price. Now, if we look at our week supply of homes, this also has leveled off. And what does this tell me, right? We've seen kind of some steady rising, and now it's leveling out, right? It's still under 5 weeks of inventory. So, if you're a condo, that's still worse than last year. And if you are a single family home, that is a bit better really than at any point last year. What does this actually mean, right? If we're seeing the supply level off? Well, what I think we're seeing is that really means stabilization of two things. Number one is stabilization of that relationship stabilization in terms of what's coming onto the market. But the other place that things are stabilizing is also in terms of that run rate, right? And how many buyers. What we're not seeing is a free fall of buyer activity. I think for those of you hoping, right, sitting on the sidelines, waiting for a real estate crash, thinking you're going to cash in, I'm just not seeing the ingredients for that to happen, at least not at this point in time. Instead, I think what we're seeing is, yeah, the market got a little bit less competitive. I think we weren't seeing kind of the same crazy kinds of offers, no inspections, no nothing. But we're settling into a spot that is fairly competitive, right? So it's still not a market where you can just offer 200,000 under list and get it. The sellers still reserve the right to give you the middle finger if you write an offer like that. And I think in many cases they still will. But if you're a buyer, right, you're kind of in an interesting situation right now, and you're facing a bit of a dilemma. The ground is a little bit uncertain, or at least it's felt that way for the last couple of weeks. I do think things are solidifying up. Like I said, I do believe we are finding an equilibrium. But if you're a buyer, here are your choices, right? Like, you can either think, I'm going to sit on the sidelines because I don't have a lot of certainty, I don't have a lot of confidence. And the danger in that maneuver, right, is that the market may actually be taking a lull. Interest rates drop and it might get more competitive again. And that inventory number might even reverse and start to drop. That wouldn't be good if you were a buyer. The other choice you have is you say, well, this is a little bit of a lull and I'm going to take advantage of that and get something while I can. And hey, if rates can go down in the future, I'll be able to refinance and end up with the same house, but a lower payment, which is kind of a win-win. So, I think if you're a buyer sitting on the sidelines, I don't see a huge danger in that we're kind of seeing an impending crash. Again, I just don't see the ingredients for that happening. I think if we really start to see softness in prices, you will see the sellers dry up, and that will reduce the inventory available in the market. You will see houses get pulled from the market rather than take a lower price. And I think that will have an effect of keeping those prices propped up. I had this conversation with a colleague earlier today. Let's pretend for a second that the market dropped 10%. What does that really mean? Honestly, that means the last 5 months of gains go away. So all we do is rewind the clock back to the beginning of the year. To me, that's not really that big of a change when you look at it from that time-based perspective. Anyhow, it is Memorial Day weekend. I hope everyone is doing something fun. If you are interested in buying a home, or if you know someone that should be buying a home, and I think we all know somebody like that, and you want to know that they're going to get actual solid advice to make great decisions, definitely send them our way. We would love to work with them if they are in the Southern California market. Questions and comments, as always, we love those. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Have a great weekend, and we will see you again real soon.